Hello and welcome back. This is the third iteration of this video style, and this week we had an album called Culture Clash live by the Aristocrats. Now the Aristocrats are an instrumental supergroup, and that's about all the backstory you need to know. So I have heard an Aristocrats studio album before, Tre Caballero, which I thought was okay. I mean, there's nary a bad moment in it as far as I can recall. It was a while ago though. My only issues with that really were maybe the lack of memorability, if you can call it that. I mean, the fact that I don't remember says something, but to be fair, that's the case with a lot of albums I've only listened to once. There was one song I did enjoy on it, enough to add to my playlist. It was called Pig's Day Out. Maybe that's a bit arbitrary, but nonetheless, clearly I like the music enough. And as far as live album goes, now I've heard a number of live albums in my time, nowhere near as many live as studio as you would expect from someone listening to albums, but I think quite drastically fewer. I never go out of my way to listen to live albums, even if they're very highly regarded, because something about studio albums appeals to me. The fact that this is the way the band wanted the song to sound, and this, for me, it almost has to be the definitive version of each song, even if some live versions are better. But I'll confess there are a number of live albums I love. My favourite of all time, I believe, is Between Nothingness and Eternity by Mahavishnu, which is probably a surprise to nobody. Other ones that I do love are Cassiopeia Live 85, and I suppose Seconds Out by Genesis. Strictly speaking, I've seen that live album performed live like 50 years on when we saw Steve Hackett live, but this is very far besides the point, so we'll move on. So I'll say right from the get-go, so there's no suspense, I did enjoy this album quite a bit. I thought though long, it was never tedious, and there were numerous exciting moments throughout every single song of this 8-song, hour-long album. It goes without saying that at any given point in this album, there's going to be fantastic musicianship on show. It's just a question of how they make their virtuosity worth listening to. And though, yeah, I would definitely say it's worth listening to, there are questions you can ask in terms of the point of the music. Now that sounds like a sort of pretentious question, and maybe it is, but it's something I do like to think about. Because there's complex music and there's simple music, and why is it that the simple music is always so much more effective? And when I say effective, I do mean it makes the point it's trying to make in such a succinct manner. And of course, with every song on this album being 5 minutes up to 10 minutes, it's quite the opposite of that. And of course, with it being progressive, all sorts of usual song structures are eschewed in favour of lengthy jam-style sections. And no, music doesn't have to conform to normal musical structures, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't benefit from it. I mean, think of your favourite song. It probably has a chorus, right? But you'd be very right to argue with me and say that is not the point of this music at all, because the nature of virtuosic instrumental music is to impress its audience. And obviously this is a live record. With it being live, it would definitely be much better to actually watch this performance live, either through a video or literally being there. As a musician, I would definitely be inclined to say that it would be incredible, perhaps even life-changing, to see this band live, because they are some of the best of the best. And of the subject of that, I think, for me, Guthrie definitely steals the show in pretty much any Aristocrats stuff I've heard. Maybe because the guitar is naturally front and centre because it's a trio and the other two are in the rhythm. But my gosh, some of the stuff he does is unbelievable. So to me, this seemed like it's an archetypal live album by these guys, as in, I imagine all of their other live albums sound pretty much like this one. But to be specific to this album, some of the song titles are hideous, I will say. I mean, need we talk about the opener? And then we have just silly things like, ooh, no. Like, what is that? Okay, sure. And they make it clear that they don't take themselves too seriously at a number of points in this album, most notably in Get It Like That, where there's this Axel F interpolation and also this random squeak break, which I don't even know what was going on there. It sounded like some like clarinet or saxophone reeds. I couldn't tell you without looking it up, to be honest. There's something about the Aristocrats, or I guess specifically Guthrie Govan's guitar sound, that it taps into some sort of nostalgia for me. And it reminds me of New York City. Now, that'll sound like nonsense, but let me try and explain this.
The first thing I'm reminded of is this live performance of Sunset Surfer by Naked City. Now, I don't have the live version's audio, but the studio version will suffice. So, just listen to this. And of course, this was live in New York City. The next one is from the game Runabout 3, which may be a surprise to nobody, but anyway, listen to this one. Okay, now let's compare these to a moment from Ooh No in the album we're talking about. So I don't know if they sound similar to you or not, but for me it's just this sort of trifecta of musical moments that take me to New York City despite the fact that I've obviously never been there.
And on the topic of Runabout 3, the song Louisville Stomp bears a hell of a lot of resemblance to the song Cats from that game. I mean, I'll link it in the description, give it a listen, and tell me it doesn't sound like it. Okay, time for the questions. So, another album I really love from the year this was released. It's another mid-teen. Last one was 2016. And 2015 is not much better. I've got like 10 albums I've heard at all. So, I mean, there's a very obvious one from this year I could pick, but I'm not going to. So I'll have to go with something I've only heard once, unfortunately. I wish it could be something I could recommend more strongly. But we'll go with it anyway. It's Depression Cherry by Beach House. I believe has the most popular song on it. I couldn't tell you what it was called. But Beach House is pretty much a sure thing if you like this sort of, what do you call it, shoegazy, dream poppy sort of stuff, like My Bloody Valentine or Slow Dive. Or who was it they reminded me of? Oh, I'm not going to stand here and think of it. Either way, it's a good album, so listen to it if you're interested. And of course, the question that's in the title, well, actually it isn't in the title, but it's a question anyway, is Culture Clash Live a one and done? It's a weird one. Because although I did like the album quite a bit, one of my favourites that I've had in this rotation, it's just like, why would I listen to it again? Why specifically would I listen to this one again, should I say? Because there's a number of reasons why I would listen to it again. So I'm going to say, if you ask me to, sure. But I'm probably not going to on my own volition. But that's not going to be representative of my overall opinion of the album. And that is going to be that for this episode. So we will see you next week. And remember, it doesn't matter how many notes you play I'd rather be listening to Reality Breakdown.
Someone tell me what to do! Someone tell me what to do!